Today we're talking about, you know it, Tsukuyomi again. Because this time we have the closer look, and it's so exciting. There's so much stuff in here already, we're learning so much about the god. By the way, on that note, the data mining that came out like a month ago was completely off about everything, so it was fake. It was at least not for this character, we can say this much now. But what we can find here is so cool. We'll just go through this, I'll add my commentary, and we'll also put it together with the data mining because we can actually find out so much already from that. It's really, really cool. Who is Tsukuyomi? Tsukuyomi is the god of the moon, brother of both Amaterasu and Susano. The three were born together when Izanagi cleansed himself upon leaving the underworld. Amaterasu became the god of the sun, Susano the god of the sea, and Tsukuyomi climbed the celestial ladder to become the god of the moon. The moon holds great power and mystery. He is able to control all of his aspects to enact his will on his surroundings. Do not get on his bad side. Any misstep in etiquette, any action that can be seen as disrespectful, is not only a direct attack on him, but order itself. Tread lightly or end up dead. Our vision. Tsukuyomi himself has a few myths and legends surrounding him. His core mythology focuses around his slaying of Ukemochi, or Moki, a food goddess that disrespected him, and the subsequent fallout with Amaterasu, who in some stories he was married to, by the way. His views on respect, authority, and order are core to his identity, and his swift application of precise punishment is the way he expresses these views. SMITE Tsukuyomi should stay true to these core characteristics in both visual presentation and in his combat style. He strikes with precision, moves with grace, and visually embodies what it means to be a divine figure. His twin tonfa and arsenal of ninja weaponry serve to showcase these qualities. Tsukuyomi. Theme: ninja. When Tsukuyomi fights, it's to quickly resolve a conflict before him. Striking from the shadows, finishing opponents from range when possible, and delivering rapid but decisive strikes are a strong extension of his personality. And yes, when they say range here, they actually mean from range. We'll get to that. Visuals: resplendent. He is the god of the moon, a symbol of a bright line piercing the dark. How others view him is irrelevant. He is a beacon for others to view and seek inspiration from. He clothes himself in ornate cloth, wields clean and sharp weaponry, and carries himself with a soft beauty. Personality: self-righteous. Tsukuyomi believes that following divine order is the only way forward, and it just so happens he sees himself as the pinnacle of that order. Perspective: egoistical. The gods have been striving for order through all their, it's a missing word here, time or life, and now are dealing with the embodiment of disorder, Cthulhu. For a god to come and claim that they are the one to restore it will strike a nerve. Can he live up to his own high standards? Within SMITE's universe, Tsukuyomi is an opportunist usurper. He sees the chaos that Cthulhu's arrival has caused, and uses this catastrophe to enact his revenge on Amaterasu. He will strike without warning at the time the Japanese gods are vulnerable, and then he will seek out even more power. Visual process. The tonfa, being Tsukuyomi's weapon of choice, rose to the top early in his development process. Not only could they serve as a strong crescent shape to allude to the moon, but it gave him a striking silhouette and allowed us to explore different styles of attacking. His appearance should also evoke the idea of the phases of the moon, contrasting the light of the full moon and the darkness of the new moon. Tsukuyomi is also unique as a god of the moon. In many mythologies, this role is traditionally held by a goddess, with a male god holding the position of the god of the sun. In the Japanese pantheon, these are swapped. His beauty is often described as one of his defining features, but in many tales his features are described in more androgynous ways. Here we explored variations on his clothing, hair, face, and if we would cover his face in some form. Where we did show his face, we gave him softer features to accentuate his beauty. Gotta say, seeing what we've seen lately in terms of early designs, there's actually quite a lot of variation in Tsukuyomi's design compared to many others, especially when it comes to the face and the hair, but also partially the outfits, even though obviously there was certain standards set by mostly his weaponry, but also his hair, with one exception here, that they quickly scrapped. As we continued iterating, we landed on having his face be exposed and started fine-tuning the garments he would wear. At this stage, we also wanted to develop the personality of the weapons. We gave them names, Shingetsu and Mangetsu, representing the new moon and the full moon. Not only did these names heavily influence gameplay, but the artistic representation of these blades. Shingetsu represents the uncertainty and chaos that the night brings, while Mangetsu represents the precision and the illuminating nature of light. And what I really like about this part of the concept as well is how you can see how the blades differ not only in color but also in shape. The night version being way more chaotic and spiky and everything. So that was a pretty clear step at this point. The final version nails down how we wish to portray his weapons and solidify the final details of his armor. He is full of symbolism, from the color selection to the tailored patterns on his armor to the painted style engraved on his weapons. You can see here with the final versions of the weapons, they differ a little bit less than some earlier iterations, also partially because of the glow effect on it. But at the same time, I think it's really cool that the glow effect from the trailer seems to make it into the game, so that's gonna look really cool during basic attack animations, along with these weapons in themselves looking really, really cool. And I think the overall design here is just... it's just awesome. Like, I don't even have anything to say about it in particular, where I would say, like, this is a particularly great aspect or something. But just generally speaking, it just looks cool, and that's what I'm personally after. And we can also see the shuriken here on the side a little bit, and some other pattern details that I don't know, possibly might show up in some effects as well. But overall, this moon theme for his entire outfit, which I think is very fitting and very nicely done. But now we get to my favorite and most spicy bit, and that is the ability stuff. And this one is so cool. This is all I needed in SMITE. Tsukuyomi joined SMITE as an assassin, allowing him to play in the jungle and solo roles. In the jungle, Shingetsu will help him clear quickly, while his ranged harassment can put pressure onto your gank target. When it's time to go in, Tsukuyomi quickly dives onto his target, unleashing a flurry of quick strikes and putting himself near the target to finish the kill. What's interesting here is that there's no further mention of solo, but it mentions Shingetsu for the jungle, so maybe Mangetsu will have more of an impact in the solo lane. Maybe it's some sustain factor in it or something that somehow comes into play in solo. I'm not sure yet. Or maybe it's just because AA assassins are better in solo right now. Anyways, I don't really know what exactly his playstyle in solo will be, and there's no info on this here, but there's more info on his kit. Unique gameplay features. A heavy focus on Shingetsu and Mangetsu as extensions of his power. As Tsukuyomi fights, he gains access to empowered basic attacks, and he uses these weapons to channel forth his other weapons. The shuriken, kusarigama or something, and caltrops. I'll explain what these weapons are in just a moment, because we can actually tie them very closely to his actual abilities, so we go through those first and then we'll get back to that. An assassin with an extra focus on range. Tsukuyomi has more ranged poke than an assassin traditionally would, including ways to gain strong single-use ranged basic attacks. This flexibility allows him to more directly assist in a fight before finding the right opportunity to dive in like a true assassin. He does not have a traditional dash or leap, relying only on his ultimate for quick mobility. Tsukuyomi can retrieve his shuriken that is stuck to enemies, allowing him to use it again more frequently. New targeter shape, Crescent. By the way, anyone here ever played Diana in LoL? She had a crescent shape, and that was one of my favorite characters. Super cool. Tsukuyomi will need to think differently when trying to place this when controlling the area around him. So I guess depending on the exact length of the crescent, this could be similar to Baba Yaga's oval or something, but maybe it's just like a kind of cut-off crescent as well, so we'll see how effective this will be or how hard this will be to land. Last but not least, an ultimate that truly makes you feel like an unseeable, ultra-fast ninja, precisely striking through the enemy team. This is something that I think may be reflected in his art that we have here, as well as in the earlier teaser that we saw, that maybe his ultimate allows him to dash through the entire team, like kind of similar to, for example, Master Yi from League of Legends, who doesn't do that in the ultimate, but it seems like something like that would be a possibility. And now it gets really interesting, because we can actually piece so many things together because of the information that we have. So the first one is really easy. The shuriken something that's already mentioned as a weapon, and it's mentioned that you can basically pick them out of the enemy again in order to get the ability up quicker. This is very likely ability 1, because ability 1 from the data mining already mentions the shuriken, which can reach a 10 feet distance, which sounds relatively short, so I imagine there might be more to that. But if you pick them out of an enemy again, this had the note cooldown reduction of 0.40%. So I'm guessing this is a 40% cooldown reduction if you pick one of them out of the enemy, but that sounds relatively short, but then we also don't know how much damage they do. And they also return to Tsukuyomi. That sounds like it's just when you pick them up, not actually on hindsight, because otherwise it doesn't make all too much sense, unless the ones that you miss return to you. There's also the mention of them exploding, which might happen maybe if you basic attack the enemy and therefore proc this return effect. Maybe that makes the shuriken detonate and then you get your cooldown reduced, or something along those lines. The second ability is where I think the Kusarigama comes in. That weapon's name translated means chain sickle, and that is literally what it is. It's a small sickle on a chain that was often used to disarm targets, but also as a direct target to kill enemies. It was actually one of the weapons with the highest mortality rate at the time, so it was definitely dangerous on its own, but it was used to kind of hinder the enemy a lot as well by wrapping it around their weapon, and that's why I think it fits very well for the second ability, which currently, as a note, has that it has a disarm. It also has multiple effects for hits, so a main hit and something else, and it's a cone attack, so I guess he like swings it forward, and then maybe if it connects to a target, it's a different hit effect, and the disarm happens along with that, or maybe two parts of the weapon connect, maybe he just throws the whole thing at them, who knows. Because there's actually reports of basically enemies throwing the heavy weight at the back at their target as well. So I don't know how exactly it will work, but either way, it sounds like it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be fun. A range disarm of that sort in a larger cone would be something very cool. It does have a note that it can hit up to 3 times, so maybe he's just swinging it over his head first or something. We'll find out about the details there. And then the last one are the caltrops, which are basically road spikes. And that fits very well with a third ability, which has a ground effects, a slow and AoE effect in around a 25 unit radius. And then there's a mention of the ability moving somehow. I'm not sure how that part is going to work out, but everything else kind of makes perfect sense. So he's just going to throw those down and slow enemies with that. And if that is the case, then it seems like all of his abilities have a damaging component to some degree at least. Or maybe the 3 just slows, but I feel like it would have damage as well, especially in trade-off for not having that much mobility. And all of them have a ranged component to them. And then there's the effect of him getting an additional ranged attack somehow, which I'm guessing might be tied to the blades, might be tied to his normal weapons, I'm not quite sure. But either way, it seems like he's gonna rely heavy on damage and not that much on CC based on the information that we have and on the info about the weapons that we have now. And then in return for that, he just gets an ultimate that basically makes him super fast and maybe even untargetable or something. So, because it says unseeable, so I think that's gonna be like the part where he just really rips through the enemy team when that thing is off cooldown. It's still not entirely clear how the ultimate works exactly. I'm thinking a little bit along the lines of Mulan maybe, who also kind of dashes through the enemies. But then he also has these shadow clones, so I guess maybe he can spawn them and they attack all enemies around you and you can be one of them and they don't know which one you are or something along those lines. Either way, it sounds very, very cool, and they mentioned already that it's gonna make you feel really good, so I'm looking forward to that aspect as well. And I really like this overall. I would like this character to have like a high amount of damage and not be as focused on anything else really. I think that original Khalees kit sounds a little bit like this in some ways. It's also relatively damage focused in many ways. But overall, I am very happy with the outcome that we have here. I'm also curious if he's even going to be played with Blink, because normally that is what happens when an assassin doesn't have enough mobility by themselves. But it might not be the case for Tsukuyomi because he has so many ranged abilities. So it might be preferable to poke with range first and stay in combat and not even blink in. Unless, I don't know, the exact benefits of the individual abilities, but maybe there's some way where you want to poke and then disengage briefly and then engage with blink. We currently have very few reliable poke style assassins. I would think Bastet and Set kind of fit that niche a little bit, but really only through a single ability each primarily in my opinion, and the other ones are just, you know, if you engage, then you commit with those. So it would be cool to have one that relies more on ranged attacks overall, but still can do decent stuff in melee range. And that context is also going to be interesting if he's going to have strong basic attacks. It sounds a little bit like he's going to be a hybrid character, where the abilities don't do that much damage and you want to go into melee to really get the full potential of with quick basic attacks. We'll find out more tomorrow. I am super excited. And the last lines of the text here were, "Enemies beware, taking a stand against Tsukuyomi will be your last mistake. Tsukuyomi will shine up on the battleground of the gods soon enough." With that, thank you guys very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, feel the sub button and maybe the bell so you get notified of all the upcoming Tsukuyomi stuff. It's gonna be Tsukuyomi for weeks, basically. And on that, see you for the next one tomorrow. Duke Sloth, out.